you enjoy it. So my personal work is in blending paper, traditional paper, with hardware and electronics, which is why I find myself in Tokyo, because I find this to be an amazing place for kind of traditional craft technologies as well as high tech. It's all kind of in the same place, and it's really amazing. And for me, the paper is something that we all understand and familiar with, and it's very easy to be creative and expressive with it. And it comes in many different forms. So soft like tissue or hard like cardboard, and you can draw and, you know, make it look very, very different depending on your style and needs. Whereas electronics is very powerful. It makes things interactive. It makes things come to life. There's data, there's so many dimensions. And so for me, I want to blend them together. And that's what I'm doing in my current lab. So basically, paper electronics is building circuitry on paper using craft materials like conductive paints and tapes and things like that, with regular electronic components. And so that's kind of what it's just like a simple example of an origami crane with a circuit board on its back. But you can see it looks very different from what we typically think about as technology. And that's kind of my goal, right? To open what we think is possible with technology and with paper, and the two things coming together. And so this is an example of when I first discovered this blend. It's a pop-up book with lights and sensors in it. And the reason I kind of show this is because when I first started to make sensors out of paper, I made them squares and circles, because when I thought of electronics, you know, I think squares and circles. But then I realized if it's paper, I can make it any shape I want. And so I started making them into stars and flowers and things like that. And suddenly the electronics were much more interesting, and they were kind of more my style. And it also took something that was already kind of interesting, like beautiful, like a scene of a skyscraper, but then made it magical, because now it's moving or making sounds or glowing. And so that's kind of an example of the two coming together. This is an artwork that I made a bit ago that was inspired by a workshop, actually. So this is a dandelion field, and when you blow on the painting, the seeds go away and they start new flowers. And it's an interactive painting that blends kind of traditional ink painting with electronics. So there's LEDs and sensors behind the painting.
This one is a master degree research.
Yeah, it was a part of my project. I would like to do more things like this, actually. So each flower actually has a microphone that's listening to you, and that's how it knows when you blow on the flower, because it sends its seeds. So, and what's neat is normally when we design circuits, we use wires and we use CAD, but I used copper tape, so I was able to stick this down by hand. So it felt more like a drawing, artistic craft process than a kind of designing on the computer, you know, using a computer-aided design program. And the look is very different. So the circuit, the flowers kind of follow the painting was the idea. And so technology can look very different and very magical, is the goal. And the other thing is, this was inspired by a workshop where I was working with a biology student, and her background was plants. And so when I showed her a sensor for blowing, she came up with this idea of making a dandelion. And the power there is that when we allow people other than electrical engineers, maybe like you guys, to start building your own technologies, you're going to build things that a typical electrical engineer is not going to think of. And that to me is really powerful, why I want to kind of share this electronic building capability with everyone. And the other thing I want to share, so this is a simple circuit of a pressure sensor and 2 LED lights. So it's very simple, but when you add a little picture, it's a character that blushes when you give them some love. So they're all very simple, but when you take this abstract technology and give it a story, a character, it becomes much more meaningful and delightful. And so I like to share how, you know, it's not just about the technology, but more about the meaning that you want to create, or the effect. So that's kind of the idea behind this one. And so the reason why I use paper is because it's also easy to work with and it's not scary. So a big component of this is in education. We want to make sure that I want to make sure to make things that make tools that use stuff that people already understand are not afraid of. So that's why all is paper. I'll share a bit more about that later. Sorry. So the other things that I like to experiment with are just making materials do things that they normally don't do. So this is an example of using shape memory wires to make paper move. These are all ways of basically the papers will move when you interact with it. I think of a video. Yeah, there it is. So when you fold one, the other one folds, and it's actually using those black lines or wires that contract when you heat them. So this is a simple example of using the wire to move paper. And what's interesting here is if you flip it over, it starts to like come alive, right? Paper doesn't normally do this and move in this organic way, but you can make it do that. And so, you know, thinking about how can we make materials and things that we think we already understand, do something surprising and new. So this was a whole project that shows that I tried to make it walk away, but it actually loses its balance and then it like falls over. So that was kind of fun. So yeah, there's I think there's a lot of possibilities in paper robotics, which my lab is exploring now. This is kind of an early experiment, but people are doing some pretty cool things along these lines. Not just paper, but I did a project with butterflies. This was for a play, actually, where I used wings from an actual butterfly, attached it to the circuit, and then the wings are moving. So this is a prototype. You can see that. And I guess one thing I want to share there is if you use things like paper or dead butterflies, from a design perspective, it takes all of the beauty and the emotional value of that object, like a butterfly, for example, but then it adds the interactive or whatever other component that technology can give it. So I like to work with materials that already have a meaning, if that makes sense, like the printed paper or the butterfly wings. It's you know, a little bit of technology, but a lot of existing value in the thing, if that makes sense. So part of that is why I'm really interested in books, because I think books have been with us for so long. The technology has not changed too much, and I think there's a lot we can do by keeping the book, but adding a little bit of electronics to it. So that's why I'm really interested in that. And these are some different pages of books with circuitry on them. This one is teaching you how to build a circuit. These are different structures for adding power to a book, for bookbinding. This is a sketchbook that is also a power supply, so that you can prototype your circuitry inside the sketchbook, while also using it to take notes like you would with a normal sketchbook. This is a storybook about an LED who dreams to be a star. So this is a prototype, and so throughout the book, the character is an LED light that goes across the different pages and has this adventure. So I'm interested in how do we turn traditional books into new storytelling interfaces, I guess. So that's Ellie. And then, of course, the project that I mentioned a little bit earlier is circuit stickers. So those were my own experiments, but I'm also an educator. I want to make tools for other people to make their own technology, so that's where circuit stickers comes in. I've taught many workshops to people of all ages, and we've learned that existing components, you can use them, but they're very small. They're built for robots, basically, or skilled engineers to use. And so we thought, you know, this is the size of a normal LED. It's very tiny, and if you sneeze, it's on the floor, and suddenly you can't find it. So it's very, it can be very hard to work with, especially for younger learners. So then we had this idea to make stickers out of electronics, because stickers are very friendly. You know, everybody understands them. They like putting it on their things, like on their laptops. So it's another thing that people already understand and like to use. It's very easy. So this was an early research project that we did around making sticker components back in 2011, or yeah. And then soon after was when I actually met Bunny, and then I was on the first batch of students to Shenzhen, and that was my project. And so through the course of that course, we started experimenting with making flexible circuit boards. So this is the first one where we just made all these different components, and Bunny was really interested in learning how to use flexible circuit boards rather than traditional rigid ones. So it's like there were things that we were both very excited about in this project, and it turned out we could make stickers very much more efficiently using a flexible PCB process, and that's how we got connected with King Freddy, the flexible PCB company.
Yes, 多分何人かの人は、ザ・ブック・ハードウェア・ハッカーを読み終わったと思うんだけど、ブック・ハードウェア・ハッカーの 30%、40% is a story of Chibitronics and story to relocated with Shenzhen and みたいな感じです。
Yeah, so you can learn a lot of detail there. Also, Bunny's blog, he has a lot of this on there too. So this is our very first board, and then we tried it out, and the stickers worked, and it was a cool prototype. And you know, we published a paper because that's what that's what researchers do. But and we also did a workshop here, actually, in Tokyo back in 2013. That's Yoshi.
Shibuya.
I don't remember Loftwork. I don't remember where it is. But yeah, so so it was pretty cool. And that was our initial set of circuits. And I also wrote a book. So it's not enough just to make the tool, you also have to make the learning resources around it. So this is a book where you can put the stickers and tape inside and follow, and then there's different circuits and different drawings and kind of art activities to go along with the circuits. So we made all of this, we made a website, and then all of these tutorials. So in making any product, it's not just the product, it's also the support and the teaching and all of the all the materials that come around it that is actually, in my opinion, almost more difficult than making the product. And so here's our tutorials online. And finally we originally did this as an experiment where we wanted to see, we have the stickers, they work in the lab. What do real people, real teachers out in the real world do with them? So we did a crowdfunding campaign. We got backers. That's when this and we sent it out to people, and we gave surveys, and I even wrote a paper on that. But in the process of getting this out into the world, I was a student at the time, and this was the first time I had people that I didn't know using something that I created, and it was both very energizing and kind of inspiring to see that you feel like you're making an impact, because oh my gosh, people are building circuits with something that I created. Now I also understood, oh my gosh, this is a product. They took I took their money. They have expectations. Now there's it feels like a more real thing. It's not just in a lab anymore.
That project is not a company yet.
Not company yet.
Okay.
When we did the crowd, it's this is basically like Kickstarter. We did it just with enough to get enough money to make enough kits to send to people, so that I can then do the surveys to get the research and to get the data for my PhD research, basically. But what happened is we initially thought it was going to be a small project. We crowdfunded, we get enough users, I will write a thesis, and we're done. But people continued to ask and want more stickers, and so we started to produce more, and that's when the company was born. And so it was by accident, basically. We didn't intend to start a company when we did this, but there was enough interest that we're like, okay, we'll keep going. So that's how that started, and that was back in 2014, basically, when we started the company.
How many people joined to Chibitronics in now?
Now,
Maybe the payable, not employee, but payable member.
Yeah, well, it's funny because all of us also do other things. I'm technically also at, my main thing is I'm actually at the University of Tokyo. There's other people who are PhD students. Even Bunny has all his other projects. So this is still a side project for everyone. But now of the people regularly working on it, there's maybe about eight, nine people. But yeah, so we're growing, but we like to stay a small company, and we also like to do so many things. So it's a very strange company. I feel very lucky because one of the other people, she's a PhD student now. Another person, we're all doing so many things. I feel like that's almost a kind of, I don't know if that's not good for the company. I feel like sometimes you should be obsessed with your company, but we're all kind of balancing multiple things. But Jie is still working and alive and producing things, so it's pretty good. But yeah, it was totally an accident, basically.
Totally accident. Wow.
Yeah, totally accidental company, definitely.
So I have a question. These books can be bought by this cloud supply.
Yeah, well, you can buy it on Amazon, actually.
Amazon.
And Japanese distribution by Switch Science.
Yes, and there's a Japanese language book too.
And historically, how many books have already been sold?
I don't know.
Roughly speaking.
Huh?
Roughly speaking.
Probably, I don't know. Maybe not too many, but not little either.
10,000?
Definitely more than 10,000.
Definitely more
I
than
would
10,000.
say maybe definitely more than 10,000, maybe around 50,000, probably less than 100,000 is my guess. Somewhere around
50,000.
Maybe that's the maybe
5万以
close.
上ユニット売ってるんだったらそれはすごいですよ。
I don't know. Yeah, but like in compared to like companies, that's actually quite small. But compared to grad students, that's actually quite big.
Yeah, but
So-
50,000 is a very big number.
Yeah,
In my company sold many of Arduino, but yearly Arduino sales is less than 20,000 or I think around there. But 50,000 is a very
no,
good.
no. In 1 year, we sell less.
No, I know 1 year, but
Yeah.
but 50,000 is not a small, not
Yeah,
a
I
small.
mean, I guess I should feel good. So yeah, maybe around that much.
Typical
Yeah.
Kickstarter project is a backer is around 300 to 500. But these are very expensive product. Like typically Kickstarter project is maybe the $500 to $300 to $500, and the backer is around maybe 300 to 500 to 1,000, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, we're about that side. Well, it works.
Now can be bought in Amazon in Japan.
Yeah. So, but also Switch sites.
Yes.
Yeah. But
実はサーキットステッカーのこの一番子供用のやつってもう日本語版があるんですよ。
なんか
で
日本語がありますね。
これはイングリッシュバージョン。
The-
But they have
the circuit sticker.
Oh yeah, there's also Japanese version. Yeah, yeah.
yes, Japanese version. だから Amazon ではね、hard to find Japanese バージョン。
Yeah.
スイーツサイエンスは直接輸入して、そのジャパニーズバージョンどこで買うのか全然分かんなかったのが輸入の一番の目的で。で、これあれでね、安い割に紙だからそれだけに柄が大きくて、だから like product price $10, but shipment also $10. That's the reason why we bulky shipment from the China to here and to we switch size the ship from Japan, even more cheaper. Maybe the one shipment need only 80 yen. それが、our motivation why we import the product from the overseas. The cheap product, high shipment fee is bad for the customer. That's the reason why we need a box. でも Amazon で買ってもらっても全然別に
どこで買うの一番安いっていう。
インクルードシップメントフィーだとスイッチサイエンスが一番安い、間違いなく。
くどいですね。こんなに聞いて
それは
買いますね。
それはただね、キビトロニクス、本社から買った方が、キビトロニクスはね、オンエレクトリックコマースサイトがあって、そっちの方がモアプロダクト。イングリッシュバージョンだけど。I think, yes, you are is a direct sales channel with the cloud supply and you have the direct sales channel from the Chibitronics, like cloud supply or with others.
I mean, well, we also sell directly on our website, so
Mhm.
Chibitronics.com, and then there are actually many resellers. And we just started selling on Amazon Japan rather than just Amazon US, and also with Switch Science. So we're slowly, but not
Amazon
very
Japan is also good choice. And just product price, direct sales, and direct sales are most cheapest one. But need expect shipment fee.
I actually don't know because I didn't really set this part up. I'm doing more of the design stuff. This is why we need folks like you to do the business stuff. That's definitely not my expertise. Yeah, but that's why I deeply respect it because an engineer can make so many products, but if you don't know how to sell it, you still don't have a company. So yeah, it's important. So accidental company, Chibitronics. And then, we taught many workshops, worked with many schools, from young elementary kids to high schoolers in college. These are just some things that they made, fun drawings. And what's an interesting community, especially here in Japan, is that we found that adult crafters, so people love to make cards and stamps. These are typically women, actually. Are starting to make lots of circuit cards, which is really cool because I love to see people, especially who are not normally engineering, doing things like electronics. It's very exciting, and their stuff is beautiful. So these are all like different things that they did, and also in terms of working with teachers, not just science teachers, but even English teachers have really powerful experiences where at first they were scared to do this because they're English teacher or language teacher, but then they also made circuits and now they're using it in their English class to tell stories or have students write, and so people are being very creative about how they can apply electronics in normally non-engineering kind of context.
本当はそのプロダクトのメインマーケットって今言ったみたいに女性が多いしおしゃれが好きなの多いんですよ。だから水気サイエンスのメインマーケットはティピカリテクノロジーギークなので、本当は I think 水気サイエンスは not the best shop for the Chibitronics. I think the ビレッジヴァンガードとかユザワヤ and 世界堂 and ビレッジヴァンガード many some design shop is a more suitable for the だからはい、ご紹介いただけたらもうスーパー嬉しいですし何でもやります。
I hope that it could be useful for everyone.
Yes.
That's my goal. But so we started to see, online people start to post really interesting tutorials on YouTube, and they're all like, again, really beautiful, but they're also circuits, which is interesting from a researcher perspective, right? My goal is,
Wow.
My goal is to increase the ratio of women and people who are not normally in engineering to do these things. And so,
completely different my community.
Totally. Well, over time, there's actually more women. So actually now I'm like, we need to balance it, But so that's kind of what's interesting from the research perspective, which is that by using these new tools that use like paper, but still circuits, they're the same circuits that are, in our phone, we can get more new kind of people creating their own technology. So that was really exciting to me.
Yeah, but
how do you check the gender?
So yeah, very messy. That's why there's a big unknown, which is blue. This is guessing. Basically, we look at our customers and we look at the
names.
This is my PhD, so this is back in 2016. Now it may be different. We look at their first name and we try to guess.
Oh, the female using the cloud supply. Surprising.
What?
Means buy from cloud supply.
Oh no, so actually I could show you a different graph. This combines crowd supply and all the other other channels combined. Yeah, so this is by year, not by website.
クラウドサプライっていうキックスタークラウドファンディングサイトはオープンソースハードウェアしか基本的に載ってないすごい面白いサイトで I think 95% クラウドサプライカスタマーイザーメイル
I think you're correct. And this is also very messy, right? Because who knows? Some people might identify as a different gender. It's also sometimes not clear, but based on customers who order.
But this one is a great result because I know the many project. This is for the woman, for the female. まあでも売れたの見たことないぶっちゃけ。特に smart people making product for the female is a very そうなんかねそういろんな会社のおっさんたちが女性のためにって作ったものがまともに売れたの見たことないので。Yeah, it's a very good because sell to female is a very difficult. Very
Well, I
good.
think if you make the product kind of make sense, and the thing is, we try. This is now a personal approach, but I try not to say like this is for girls. I say this is for craft. This is for art, and then anybody who likes craft or art can come and participate. It doesn't have to be girls, right? So I think it kind of is a more natural thing. Like, many people think that if you make something pink, suddenly more girls will like it, but I don't think it's quite like that. So for us, it's like, what do people that are not normally doing engineering, what kind of things do they like? Maybe craft, art, clothing, something, and then use that to naturally make the connection. Anyway, that's what I think. So we also looked at who's using, so there's like crafters, makers, a lot of teachers, some designers and artists, and then this is based on looking at websites that link to us, what kind of people are, what kind of website that is, if it's a blog from a crafter or a maker, or if it's like a teacher website. This was again back in I think 2016, so my guess right now the crafter pie will probably be even more, because I think we have more craft community now. But it's an interesting mix. It's not just makers, engineers. It's many different kinds of people. Hold on, sorry. Maybe that stuff I already talked about. Oh, here we go. So I already talked about the manufacturing thing, so I'll skip that part. The last project, I'll talk about this very quickly because I know we're running out of time. Patents. So patents are something that I was not very interested in at all, because I just want to make things. I'm not a lawyer. And I'm also a big believer in open source, so I just don't patent my things. I try to share it as much as possible. But so these are illustrations from my sister, who's a very good artist. So I'm like this panda who just likes to make things, right? There's creative momentum, you make things. But then one day I'm hit in the face with this thing. What is it? What is this thing? It's a patent. It turns out, even if you only care about open and sharing, patents still can be a thing that affects you. That's what I learned. So before I came to Tokyo, I was a fellow at the Berkman Klein Center, which is part of the Harvard Law School, and I was working with lawyers and law students on this idea of patents and open innovation. How can they work together? What I ended up doing was realizing that most people don't understand patents at all, even if they are using them. And so I started making this website called Patent Pandas to teach about patents first. So Patent Pandas, because patents are scary, but pandas are not. And so I just put them together to be Patent Pandas. And so now we have Judge Panda. And basically there are stories from my own experience. There's resources where I actually share about a patent using Panda comics, and then the Get Help section is links to free legal resources. This is for the US though. This is not, unfortunately, not for Japan, but maybe something similar could be helpful here. So basically the stories, I'll tell this super fast, because I know we're running out of time, is one, so I made that pop-up book, right? That was the first thing I made. Well, it turns out a few years ago back at Google, they were doing a new storytelling project, and they actually brought me there to share my project. And my visit turned into a job interview, which I thought was for like a summer internship or something, because I was a PhD student at the time, but then they offered me a job, like right on the spot. And I was like, oh, that's very exciting, but I ended up having to say, can I know, because I need to finish my PhD. And so that was that kind of a crazy experience, which was really amazing. I was like, wow, Google wants me to work for them, that's great. I found out 2 years later that all the things that I shared with them during that job interview, that same team applied for patents on everything that I shared with them, even though it already existed. It was already published in research papers. And then that's when it was very frustrating. So that was kind of one story. But what ended up happening is, because I was at MIT, and MIT students, many of them go to Google for work. The Jie, who was director of the Media Lab at the time, actually knew the director of that department at Google and just emailed her and was like, what's going on? A student is telling me you're trying to patent the stuff. And then they were like, oh, I'm sorry, it must be some mistake. And then they looked at it, and basically they resolved it over a conversation. And then they decided to abandon the patents that they applied. So none of those actually turned into patents, which this is a good story, but I got very lucky because I happened to be at MIT, and I suspect that many creators who go to Google and they're so excited, you know, oh, they want to work with me, maybe these things happen to them and they're not so lucky because they don't have Jie basically helping them. And so that's, I wanted to share this story that so that people can, you know that this is possible, but also realize now that I've been through experience like this that it's actually very common for companies to patent anything they can think of and to not be so scared, and that there are lawyers out there who can help them and to connect them to those lawyers, because again, I think this actually happens a lot. So that's one. The other one is the crowdfunding campaign for the circuit stickers, right? We funded it, we sent it out. A few years later, we found out that one of our backers patented our project after we sent them the product. Like after they already received it, they patented it, which meant there was a mistake at the patent office. There was plenty of prior art. My research papers, our company, our crowdfunding campaign, news articles, all proof that this already existed, but the patent office didn't see. And it's because it turns out, at least in the US Patent Office and many others, they don't look at everything that's out there, they just look at prior patents, which if you're an open source person, you don't have any prior patents because you don't patent your work. It's also very expensive. And so I want to share that story, that this can even happen, but also that as long as you make lots of publications, if the patent ever goes to court, into a lawsuit, you can use all of your publications to just get rid of the patent. And so then you don't have to be scared. So even now, that person owns a patent on LED stickers, but we're the ones making the product, and she is not able to kind of come after us because this person knows that we have so much prior art. But I didn't know that at the time. It was very scary. So I'm trying to share this story so that people can learn about, how not to be scared, but to also understand how the patent system works. Because I think both electronics and patents are things that many people may not feel like it's important or may not know, but it can be, and I just don't want it to be only like rich, big companies that can take advantage of like small individuals or designers, because that does happen a lot.
That's the point. Last part is very good.
Yeah, so whether it's technology or patent law or really anything else, I think, there's a lot of learning that can be done to make it more equal for everyone.
ちょっとアディショナルコメントをすると、ちょっと前に、2年前ぐらいに、日本のネットでもバズったんだけど、Jie Qiは昔からサーキットステッカーのプロジェクトをやってたことは見たじゃないですか。6年ぐらいやってるわけですよ。で、Google がたまたま、ストーリーテリングのプロジェクト、だから絵本とか作ろうみたいなプロジェクトをこうしているときに、Jie Qi面白そうだから呼んだのね。それは全然悪いことじゃないし、リサーチャーが呼ばれたら大体どこでも行くし、Google も PhD いっぱいいるから、多分昔の友達とかもいるから話しに行ったんだけど、話してる間に、そのプロジェクトめちゃめちゃ面白いから、うちで実現しようみたいな話になって、遊びに行ったらそのまま面接になって、で結局面接は別に構わないんだけど、面接終わって、その時は何も分からずに帰ったんだけど、その後しばらく経って、その時話した話が大体特許として Google が申請されるようになってて、で特許として Google が申請されちゃうと、そもそも自分が作れなくなっちゃうから、ちょっと待てよみたいな話になって、でその時にラッキーだったのは、彼女は MIT メディアラボのスチューデントで、MIT メディアラボから Google にむちゃくちゃたくさん人行ってるので、でその Google が一番困ってるのは人の採用なので、下手にそこで変な特許取るより、その特許別に Google 的には取れないより取れた方が嬉しいかもしれないけど、それでなんか MIT で悪い評判が巻くよりは全然そんなめちゃめちゃ Google でも大事な特許ではないので、で最初 Google 対 Jie Qi だった時には、じゃあオリジナルクリエイターに Jie Qi も入れようみたいな話だったんだけど、それはでもクレジットされるだけで寄付に使えるかどうかはまた別の話で、Chibitronics株式会社とか困るわけですよっていうのがあったので、最終的に MIT メディアラボの方でもリーダーの伊藤浄一が出てきて、で Google の話をしてて、そもそも特許取り下げようよって話になって、 なんかなったみたいな話なんだけど、その後で Jie Qi が思ったのは、それで言うと電子回路も大体の人の生活には全然関係ないんだけど極めて大事なのでキビトロニクスを作ってるわけだし、パテントも大体の人の生活にはあんまり関係ないんだけど極めて大事なのでパテントパンダっていうウェブサイトを作ったっていう話を今していた。ストーリーbehind because patent things is more difficult to understand just as things.
Yeah, but
because
it doesn't
more
have to be.
yeah.
And so, and when I was going through all this, all the resources I found online were very confusing, or they were trying to sell me things. And so I just wanted to make something that a normal person can understand and is not trying to sell them anything. And so that's how Patent Pandas came to be.
君何回聞いてもなんでこの名前なのかの意味が分かってないんだけど、多分だけどパンダ可愛いしみんな大好きだからパテントもパンダみたいに気を使ってみてほしいみたいなことを言ってるんじゃないかと思うんだけど何回聞いても分かんない。Yeah, I asking the user many times why the name is Patent Panda.
Oh, yeah, because, well, it sounds good, right? Patent Panda both starts with P.
PP, yeah.
It sounds nice, and pandas are very cute. So
Panda,
I
yes,
wanted to
really
find
cute.
the most friendly thing. And then at first I was like, oh, but like, people always saying like, pandas are from China, and people are blaming China for taking IP. I don't know. I'm like, I don't care. There's still, and also, I think people around the world, no matter where you are, like, people will take things regardless of where you come from. Like, the circuit sticker story. I'm a Chinese American student who went to Shenzhen, made something, and the person that patented is this American lady from Colorado. Right? It's like completely reversed, and so it happens. But basically, Patent Pandas is just, it sounds cute, and they are cute, and my sister likes to draw them. So that's kind of how that happened. Anyway, so that's that project. More recently, I will just go through this. I'm doing more things around books and technology. I'm wanting to play with circuit boards.
Can still continue to be filming or stop?
Yeah, no.
Okay, it's okay.
It's fine. I mean, this is all like, this is more symbolic. So thinking about, again, what new things can we do with books and electronics, which is what I'm doing here. Also thinking about what new things can we do with manufactured circuit boards. This is our project of a butterfly. And yeah, that's it. Yeah, this is my time here.
This is a question and comment from the student in English. Please, maybe click maybe less than 1 minute answer to them.
Know about paper books with electric circuit. Okay, so someone said they watched my project on YouTube and want to know about paper books with electric circuits. If you send me an email, whoever this person is, I can send you some links.
That's my question.
Okay, yeah.
I already know about that. So I just wanted to know where I can buy
The kit?
the Chibitronics.
Oh, yeah, you can Chibitronics.com or Amazon Japan.
I already
or,
purchased
okay, nice.
Thank you.
What motivation? What is the motivation for people who join Media Lab? It's a good question. I mean, for students, it's a paid master's, which is very unusual. So you go there, you don't have to pay tuition. That's very basic. But also, it's I think a lot of people like to go there because if you're interested in doing something that doesn't fit in a traditional program or traditional department, it's very much accepted there. You can do your crazy project that blends like environment with technology, with neuroscience, and like puppets or something, So there's a lot of freedom and resources and experts there. And it's also, there's a lot of freedom, there's a lot of people with a lot of expertise and skills, there's a lot of resources and funding opportunities for doing what you want. And one thing I've learned is that for some reason, if you say you're from MIT, people just believe you and want to help you. Maybe you had some experience, I don't know. So there are a lot of benefits. It's a great place to kind of meet other weird creative engineering types. But what do you think? What brought you to the Media Lab?
追加質問もオールソーウェルカムです。
is that if there's so many variations, people who have a very wide variety of background, and they have a technical background, and quite technical background, and artist background. So we can talk together in the same place and eat together. That is very exciting.
Yeah, there's so many types. Yeah, everybody is welcome. I think it's cool and respected too. So yeah, cool. So thank you for sharing. Okay, maybe I'll read this and then okay. So I think this question is saying every year there's new product or new prototypes and interesting things being built by the students in the class. Is there support for students who do want to start a company? I think that's the idea. And I believe there is. It's not really part of the class, but I believe definitely at MIT and at University of Tokyo, there's like entrepreneurship center and like funds and things. So like there's definitely resources to help students. It's not the focus of our class because I personally think that if students just want to start a company, there's already so many programs that they can just go to those. And if people are not sure, like, I guess the short answer is to say yes, there is support, not specifically in the class, but at the same time, if you're in the class and you make these connections, like you meet these people and they know you, that basically is support for you to start a company because those are the people that you can use to do your manufacturing. And then, for example, the space that we were at called HAX, it is an incubator, accelerator. And so once they know those people, if they're looking to do more business related stuff, they also can talk to, they'll introduce you to people who are more on the business side. So in that case, it does help. But specifically for the students in the class, once they want to do company things, we refer them to other incubator programs at the university, which there are. So, yeah. Concepts made by the different technology and skills. Really cool. Musician, artist, engineer, movement can't be made by the narrow knowledge. It's important. It is important. Okay, so this is, I guess, more of a comment saying that it's neat that it's a blend of people from many different backgrounds and skills, and that new movements or big changes can only be made when there's a broad view instead of like a narrow view. So thank you for that point.
Yeah. Okay, additional question in Japanese and Chinese. The first one, what is the most impressive point from Shenzhen for the Todai students?
Most impressive point. I'm trying to think.
Impressive, or maybe the very awesome or surprising, or maybe the
I
big
think
impact.
they love the markets.
Market.
They love seeing so many, so cheap, and so many options, and they could just get so quickly.
Scale, variety.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. But then by the end of the class, I would say how much people were.
The second question, I have a kid 7 years old. The kid is very loving to making things. My kid is very have the curiosity to how the structure of the things and how the if the sometimes he concentrate to making the things the whole day. What is the advice to the his skill getting more better? How to learning the things now is the 7 years old kids touch only for the hardware, but more now is a better timing to touch the software or not, or maybe.
My perspective is let your child do whatever he or she is interested in, and whatever he or she whatever he's interested in, like give him support to keep doing that. Basically letting, in my opinion, I'm not a parent, so I'm like, oh, I don't know if this is good advice. But as an educator, I think that kids or people learn best when they're doing something that they care about. And so I see people showing many options and then letting the child choose what they love, and then supporting that. If that makes sense. Like if he enjoys building blocks, find different ways of building and show, and then he'll probably get excited about a particular thing and just kind of keep supporting.
And 7 years old kids is the best fit to the market for the love to code. Chibitronics.
Love to code, maybe not. Well, yeah, Chibitronics. If you want to do paper circuits, of course, I'm biased. That's always a good.
Love to code is more higher.
Love to code is a bit higher. I would say, well, Love to code is programming electronics, and then there's also a starter kit that's just the electronics. So I would recommend you learn the electronics before you try to program the electronics. But that's for that's for Jie specifically. But yeah, the best. Like the fact that he can get obsessed and build all day, that's the best. Like provide opportunities for him to have that freedom to really dive in and fall in love with making something. I think that's the most important part. It's not very specific, but that's what I would say.
It's really personal question.
Well,
Thank you
yeah,
very much.
no, I hope that's helpful. Yeah.
I will get circuit.
Circuit sticker.
Circuit sticker.
Yeah,
Circuit
that's a fun
sticker is
thing to
more
try.
easy. More easy.
Yeah, definitely good place to start.
そう、キビトロニクスっていくつかシリーズがあるんだけど、サーキットステッカーは、just a things, no programming, and more for lower kids, and also cheap. で、Love to Code は bit more expensive, but physical things and programming.
Yeah, thank you.
いやいや、ただ、Love to Code はまだ日本語版がなくて、なぜないかというと、僕が翻訳を途中で止めているからで、この講義が終わったあたりでまた翻訳を再開しようかなというふうに思っております。で、next question, your idea and you are very ideaful person. Which is better to making idea, environment or doing things? The experience or
Definitely.
environment?
Definitely both things, I think. But basically, all of it.
All
Yeah.
of this.
I think for, again, this is my perspective. Sometimes I get ideas when I'm actually in the process of making something. Like I can't imagine a project from beginning to end. I have to get started trying things, and then in the process of trying, that creates new ideas. Sometimes I'm stuck, and the more stuck I am and the more I try to focus, the more stuck I become. And so then going to see something totally different, which for me usually can be like an art exhibit or something, just to, instead of trying to create and generate, try to consume and absorb other people's creativity. That can give me more energy. But again, that's a very personal thing.
Yeah, but I strongly agree with you.
Yeah, so if I can't get started, I will try to experience other people's creative things. And then hopefully that will give me some energy or inspiration, and then I'll start to do something, and that can lead to, you know.
面白いところに行くとか面白い人と話すってめちゃめちゃ大事で、ただ話すとか行くってあんまり持続しないんですよ。できれば例えばだけどブログ書いて他の人間を連れていくとかちょっとでもコミットするともうちょい長続きするんですよ。一番簡単なのは多分ブログ書いて他の人間を連れていく。Yeah, I think how commitment to interesting things. Like I'm not a musician, but if I want to be a musician, go to concert is the first step. Bring other people to concert is the maybe second step.
Yeah, I think it matters just as much, not only doing, but also taking in from what the world, other people have made, the environment. And I think this is probably very personal and different from person to person. But,
それはすごく大事で、だから結構僕はボランタリーでオープンソースのことをたくさんやってるのはいきなり仕事にするのはやっぱ難しいんですよね。なんかそう適度に暇で面白そうなことが何でも首を突っ込むみたいな人を巻き込むのが一番楽で、その場合はだから下手に無理やりビジネスにするより面白いから来いよちなみに何も保証しませんみたいなの方がスタートは楽だったりするんですよ。 で本当に面白くてちょっとしたムーブメントになるとお金は後からついてくるので、その私が食べるぐらいの少ないお金でよければ後からついてくるので、みたいな意味で環境とやることは結構セットな気がします。で The last question, Dui Shenzhen, sorry, I cannot read in Chinese, but the means I know the, how do you think you got a success? How long time to from here?
Oh, wait, sorry.
It's a bit the typically succeed situation. If how many time, how much time you need to go to your goal? Very, yeah.
It really depends.
Very
I mean, I
crazy.
think that also is connected to another comment here, which is saying that it's important to promote kind of a culture of accepting failure in order to try new things. And so success and failure are very closely tied.
Yes.
And that
yes.
I personally, I try to become comfortable with things not working. I don't expect them to work. If you're trying to, like, when you're programming something, this is just an example, not everyone has to be a programmer, but when you write a program, you don't ever expect it to work the first time. You expect there to be some problem because probably you accidentally typed something wrong. Almost pretty much always that happens because you go in there expecting things to go wrong. When they do go wrong, you don't just lose all your energy. You're like, oh, I can fix it. And so I think I'm just so used to things not working. It's just part of my expectation. And I think if you're a student or if you're in a laboratory setting, the risks aren't so big, and so it's okay to fail more. It's okay to fail without feeling so much pain. Maybe I think that's the case. I'm trying to think how can you create a culture of it's okay to fail, because everybody kind of says that. I think everybody says, oh, failure is important, but when you actually fail, it always feels bad. And then culturally, sometimes it's hard to actually do. I think so. Things that I've seen people do are try to publish things that failed and turn them into lessons. And as long as you can learn something from a failure, it doesn't feel like a failure anymore. It feels like a growth. You gained new knowledge by knowing what it didn't work and hopefully why it didn't work, because that's very valuable. And the thing is, I'm trying to think why it kind of works this way. If something doesn't work and you are able to find out why, that means the next time you won't do that. It won't fail that way, and that will feel like a success. Does that make sense? So you just have to make sure you complete the loops. It's not just you fail and you stop. You fail, you learn what you did wrong, and you don't do it again, and then now you've succeeded. Maybe that's one way to think about it, to turn a failure. But it is hard, because I think so many people say to do this, but it's hard to do. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to keep saying it. That's what I think. But in terms of how long it takes to succeed, and this is again very personal, I just try to tell myself if the goal is important enough, I'll just keep doing it until I succeed. And then that means it will take however long it takes, but you know you'll get it because you won't stop until you get it. Unless one day you decide that your goal is not that important, then you can stop. But it's about, you know, whether the goal is important. And so some things can be very fast, a small project, but like Chibitronics is still growing, and I still have all these goals, and we're not there yet, but it's important to me, so I'm going to keep working on it. So it's, there's no finish line, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's very exactly and very impressive. I still remember the last page of the hardware hacker from Barney. He told, what is a yes, what is a hit, or what is a fails, very difficult to understand and define. But still keeping running, this is my reason to doing things. ハードウェアハッカーの最後のページにそのバニーファンが何が当たりで何が外れかを分かることは難しい。なんだけど自分がこれは新しいことを勉強した、これは新しいことを勉強して思い続けてる限り探し続けるたびにものすごく価値があるので、これから先も自分は電子のフロンティアは旅し続けるだろうみたいなことが書いてあって、それはすごくグッときた部分があります。 Yeah, it's the Japanese version to the last page of the hardware hacker. Also very sold. The continue to traveling is the most important of things. But Anna asking from me, do you have the big dream for the maybe the go to Mars or maybe some
For me?
yeah.
Uh,
I have one is my lifetime dream is making maker fair in Japanese palace.
wait, in Japanese palace?
Japanese palace.
Wow.
Our emperor lives in.
Oh, wow. Like the White House.
Yeah.
Like the White House maker
The
fair,
US
but-
is a maker fair in White House,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Barack Obama said, building the company is American DNA, rebuilding the things. But we Japanese having also the more longer history than US, and our emperor is chief of the agriculture.
Huh.
Every in the chief of the agriculture, and he is a biology scientist.
Oh, okay.
And every year, each year, we Japanese doing the festival. Our emperor is making rice by themselves.
I see.
Making rice by themselves. We are rice country, and we are farmers and green country because emperor is a focus for the agriculture, grown nature. In the future, every year, our emperor to doing to start bringing the LED. Okay, bringing LED, Japanese hardware and Japanese people making things doing very well. Finally, we become a truly makers country.
Very cool. That's a neat dream.
私結構真面目にいろんなところで言ってます。今日生涯の夢って何かありませんかって言ったら、なんとか皇居でメーカーフェアをやりたい。首相官邸ではないです、皇居ですっていうなぜかというと、天皇はあくまでそのハードウェアの神様であって、あらゆるハードウェアは天皇の恵みによってできているので、だから米が食えるので、彼が電気にも興味を持って、その毎年今年も日本のプロダクトは良いものですねみたいな、自分で LED をこう伝えて光らせてることによって、その新嘗祭で LED を光らせることによって日本全体がものづくり国家になってきてっていう夢が結構ガキガキにあります。メーカーフェアインジャパニーズエンペラーズなんです。
I understand that. That's cool. That would be really neat. Let's see. Maybe
I don't know the way to the goal, but this is my lifetime dreams.
That's cool. I guess if I had to think about it that way, my dream is to make electronics programming feel as simple and accessible as crayons. Like kids can draw, anybody can draw with crayons. It's safe, it's easy, you can express yourself. What if you can do the same with electronics and circuitry and code? Because then it won't be just, a certain select small group of people making all our technology for us. Because all of us can make our own technology, especially if it's that easy. And our technology will look as different as drawings do and not all like, Apple. So that would be my dream, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Another question.
There's one question which I have no idea how to answer, which is what is the best place for business?
Oh!
Which I don't know. I feel like that's a question that you guys probably would know better. I only started one business. Maybe you guys have been through many. I would like to think that maybe this is another dream with access to the internet and more ways to share our value on, to other people through the internet. Maybe it matters less and less where you are, but that we're connected and that you can meet the people that you need to meet, that to work with them to do your business. It's like less geographic, more social. Who are you able to connect with? Because Chibitronics, we don't have a headquarters. I'm in Tokyo, Bunny's in Singapore, another person's in California, one's in New York, one is in DC, and one is in Austin, Texas. And I know these are all kind of big cities, but I think, factories are in Shenzhen. That's true. Those don't really move very much. But the rest of us actually travel a lot. So even though we live in these places, we're often somewhere else. But we all do this online, and we hire a company to do the factory, the warehousing for us. But I'm lucky that I was at MIT, so I met people who but I think hopefully more and more, as long as you can meet the people that you need to meet, you can be wherever. Yeah, maybe you have an
So
answer.
could you list your 5 favorite cities?
My 5 favorites.
Favorite.
And
Oh.
why?
Why? Oh, interesting. Well, this is now extremely personal bias.
That's why
Yeah.
bias is important
Yeah.
for this kind of question.
Oh, okay. So, I like New York because there's culture. I like art museums, so I was kind of so I'm like, well, the best places for but there's that, but there's also a thriving tech scene. A lot of people go through there. There are things that attract people. People don't have to stay there, but they go through there a lot. So that's kind of a nice hub. I like Tokyo is pretty sweet. I only expected to stay here 1 year, but I'm staying here 2 years already. So it's a lovely place. Also great culture, great safety, food, all art, all of these things. Surprisingly more affordable than I thought, actually. Yeah, not the rent, but everything else. Rent very expensive still. But also a place where people come through a lot. Ira, help me, you know me.
Have to say Tampa.
Tampa, yeah, so Tampa, Florida. My family is there. It's also great weather. I'm a warm
You
climate
don't have to
person.
specify, but you know.
Yeah, that's the reason. Not as much going on, but the environment is good. I was thinking, best place for business. If I could do what I want, I would go live in a small place near nature, but have amazing internet and close airport access. So that's how I think about it. Because then I can go to all these great cities, but not have to, also be in nature and peaceful.
Well, you don't say Boston is one of your favorites.
Boston is special because of MIT and that community, but it is cold. There's not as much museums. There's not good food as a city. It's like probably so productive because there's nothing else to do. I think that's how I feel about Boston. Maybe you feel that way too.
So it's good to be as a PhD
I don't know, what do you
student,
think?
maybe. It's good to be as a PhD student to be
Yeah.
Boston, but not after that.
Well, maybe it is, but again, this is very personal. I'm a tropical person, and I
Me
I
too.
just couldn't handle it. Maybe you've been there too, so you know what I mean.
Yeah, my stay was from the September to March. So
Oh no, that was the worst. Yeah, well, September's okay.
I don't know the
Fall
good
is okay.
season.
Yeah, fall is pretty good, actually.
Fall very good,
September's
very, very good.
But once you hit November, it's like just sad. So I'm sorry. But it's a good community. That's why I'm saying like, oh, in my dream, in my ideal place is like you can live anywhere, whatever environment you like, but you're connected to people that you work well with and through the internet, and then you have airplanes to get you in the same place occasionally. But in terms of like, techie people, entrepreneurial people, definitely there's tons of people in Boston, in New York, in San Francisco, in Austin, Texas probably. That's all within the US. But everyone's trying to work on it. Shenzhen, lots of crazy, people trying to do stuff. But do I want to live there? I don't know, right? I'm not obsessed with my company the way that I think some people are. So I'm a weird person maybe to ask this question.
Many my PhD friend is don't like lives in Shenzhen. Making product is okay, and let's going crazy is okay, but more deeply thinking is very difficult in Shenzhen. Too many things happen there.
There's a lot going on. Yeah, it's good if you have the thing that you want to do, but it can also in any big city it's very easy to be distracted. Which is why I'm like, oh,
But
maybe if I would
Shenzhen is
decide-
more extreme. Yeah, the Batsam in the guitar technology, Batsam.
Yeah, Bassam.
Bassam is also not prefer lives in Shenzhen. The making product in Shenzhen is okay, but more deeply thinking concept and more deeply doing focus on marketing in Shenzhen is sometimes too many things make happen. And also Barney fan sometimes talking to me in Singapore more purely focused on my project and in Singapore more easy to don't move out from laboratory. But in Shenzhen many funny things there and also many inviting from the new products, new science conference.
Yeah,
And
well, if you're bunny, you're probably trying to hide from everyone. So that's probably why he's in Singapore.
Yeah. The Singapore is more better for deeply thinking and writing blog and maybe something.
So maybe that's also a good point. If you're getting started and you're trying to build your network, it's definitely good to be, in these big city environments. But if you're established and you have a thing that you're already doing, it's better to be a little bit away so you're not distracted. But you still, you still go to, this events and conferences, so you can still concentrate. But if you're always at the events, which I've done before, I just go to event after event, you don't get any work done, which I think is also important. Why you need a little bit space. That's what I think anyway. Yeah. But I don't know. I wish I knew because I don't know where I want to live. I'm in Tokyo now though because I like it.
Do you plan to extend one more year? How long will you stay in Tokyo?
I just extended for another year.
You did?
Yeah, so originally I was through this March, but now I'm extending through 2021. So I'll be here another year.
Second year, okay.
Yeah. So I have no idea. I'm like the worst person to ask the question.
But if you stay more 1 year or 2 years in Tokyo, please support to maybe some of the Maki-san's community.
Of what?
The Maki sensei is having a very strong community, but most of economic researcher a bit less technology people. To join there is making sense happen.
Yeah, well, I'm here, so I'm very close by up in Hongo, so I'd love to hang out more.
確かにでもそうですね。健全つき好んで住んでる人は僕をはじめとしてやっぱりやかましい人が多いですね。あんまり落ち着かないタイプというか。Yeah, I think the people who lives in Shenzhen from overseas is some very active and sometimes a bit too noisy and sometimes too energized, like me.
Yeah, but I mean, it's fun. You'd be exhausted if you're not careful.
なんていうか、いると体力使うわけですよね。すごく。いや、シェンゼン need more energy than other cities every day.
Yeah, well, you also have a lot of energy, so not everybody does.
I'm okay, but
yeah.
I cannot bring my parents there.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. It depends on what you need. I feel like I don't have as much energy as a lot of people do, so I have to be kind of careful with my energy. Yeah, but it's different. If you ask someone else, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are like this. That's just not my style. But apparently it can still kind of work. So
to make your life in Tokyo happier, how can we help you? What's your necessity right now?
Necessity. Thank you. That's a very generous question.
Well, that's very, I'm curious about it, and I'm happy to help you. So.
I mean, to be honest, this is again a very personal perspective, but I'm at a point in my life where I'm just trying to figure out what it is that I will be doing next. And so up till now, I've been doing mostly research and business, and I still plan to continue this business. It feels like a child that I'm raising, so I'll be doing that. But I'm actually interested in doing more arts-related work, going back to my own work rather than purely focused on teaching others people. So I have no idea what would be helpful for that, but Tokyo there is so much kind of cultural events and things happening, so I'm just trying to learn what are they? How do I go to them? I should probably learn Japanese because most of them are in Japanese.
Yes,
So,
that's a big gap. Very hard to survive lives in Japan without speaking Japanese.
Yeah, but it's definitely, it feels much better. Like I can navigate. I've heard
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
from
yeah.
people who've been here longer that it's gotten much easier to get around. I feel okay,
Yeah.
but it's more like diving deeper into like the cultural side. So I don't know, but I'm also interested to just be a part of the community, contribute. I don't want to be a tourist.
Yeah, Japan is a very strong own culture and very big size. Yeah, 1 billion of people is a power and culture. That's the reason why very hard to survive without speaking Japanese. And also, how very hard to survive lives in US without speaking English, and
Yeah.
also in China.
That's the nature.
Yes, Japanese is often talk. Japan is a small, Japan is a tiny, but Japan is one of the biggest country of the world. India is too big and China too big, but Russia and Brazil is bigger than Japan. But Japan is top 10 or 15 larger than UK, larger than. So.
Yes. I am really interested in learning more about traditional paper making.
Oh,
print
yes,
making,
yes,
things like that.
yes.
And I know that's here.
Yes.
So
Much
if
to-
there's suggestions on how to connect with that world, I would love, because I want to connect that with technology, right? But I need to learn the craft as well. The technology I kind of know, it's the craft that I don't really know so much.
I can introduce some people for you because last week I coming from the Nagaoka city, very rural area in Japan. In that Nagaoka is a very long time traditional craft like making the chopsticks, making the porcelain, and also making the paper from the wood.
Wow.
And their old traditional craft is very hard to surviving now.
Oh, really?
That's the reason why I need a new idea and new collaborate. And some young Japanese join to that old company to more explore how using this Japanese old paper called washi.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that would be super interesting.
Maybe they making the big maker fair. Last week I went to there. One day 10,000 people to coming there.
Wow.
Next year let's going to together.
Yeah, sure. I'll be around. Yeah.
しかも長岡ものづくりフェスに MIT PhD 来ると面白すぎる。やろうそれなんとかあるような気がする。Yeah, let's doing it. The many local culture in Japan is how to survive. This is a big question.
Yeah.
Yes,
But
yes,
with a friend. That's how. Yeah.
I have a question. You said that you are one of the entrepreneur, but your style is not so aggressive.
Good question. Good question.
To save your energy, but I'm very curious about how to manage your energy or motivation, because you are doing Chibitronics related things so long time, and now you're making a company, and now you're working as a researcher. So that seems very amazing. And for me, you have so much energy to do all the things. So my question is how to manage your motivation to keep doing.
That's a really good question because I don't have so much energy and I've burned out before. So this, the feeling when you do too many things and then you're tired and then you don't care about anything because you're so tired. So I've done that before. I know that I have limited energy, so I'm trying to be very careful. I will come to things that I think are valuable that don't require me to fly too much. Like coming here to hang out is really fun. I like hanging out with Takashi and all of you, and I'm here in Tokyo, so this is great. For the company, what motivates me is very deeply genuine sense of I want to share technology and I care about equality. It's a very deep value of my own because I have had experiences of, I know what it's like to be in a place where you don't have very much. I also know what it's like to be in the best institution in the world. And I know it's not completely fair. And so my mission is to try to make the world a little bit more fair. And to me, that's about technology and education and all of that. And so that energy comes from me, I guess, fighting for my values. And so that somehow gives me energy because I care so deeply about it. But I also now learn to just notice how my body is doing because I will break myself if I'm not careful. And why Chibitronics can continue is that it's not just me and Bunny anymore. It's 8 people, and they're all doing things that they're good at, and I'm just doing a little bit here to support what I can. So I don't do everything anymore, because if I did, I will fall over and die. So I don't do that. And part of the reason why I came to Tokyo to do more research, to do these arts, is because I was running out of energy doing all of these things, that I started to not enjoy and have less energy for those things. That I'm specifically doing more arts related stuff, more research, more myself learning, so that I can bring back this energy, if that makes sense. So it's actually very limited. I'm lucky, Chibitronics is lucky in the sense that we did not have investors. We are fully self-funded from our crowdfunding campaign. So we don't have the same pressure, and so it's very lucky. But we also don't grow very fast. The company is like, I don't know, 6 years old, and you know, we're still pretty small compared to a lot of my friends, you know, have like VC and they're huge and all these crazy things, and you know, it's just a very different life. But it's a choice that we all kind of made because, you know we have limited energy. We don't have that aggressive personality. We care about many different things, and so yeah. And I have people in my life like Ira who can tell when I'm starting to not be okay, to help me, remind me it's okay to calm down, because if I don't, I'll get sick, and that's happened before. So I guess that's the question. I don't know.
And also, long and good sleep is a very important.
Yeah, rest, time away. I like quiet, which is why I was like, oh, I would like to live in a little place with an airport, so I can do both.
In the several months ago, we going together to the Maker Fair Beirut, and we 5-6 people doing in the same share house to the living together. I'm a very long sleeper. I need to sleep more than 7-8 hours. This is a bit hard to find in Japan. More typical Japanese are more short sleeping hours.
Really?
Yes,
Oh,
but Jie Qi is almost similar sleeping time with me. I
I
think.
could sleep forever.
But I'm not sure, but
Rest is important. You know, for me, I've learned when I was at the lab, for example, or you know, you look at any of these big startups, and they're always going so much. I start to realize, you know, at any point in time, there's always someone who's doing something amazing. But if you follow that company or that person for long enough, you will see when they also calm down for a little while, or that person takes a break. It's just that at any time, there's always people who are at their peak, but you don't see them when they're resting. That doesn't mean they don't rest, I guess. I try to remind myself that, because otherwise I'm always comparing myself, and that's not good.
そうです。そうかもしれない。友達とか知り合いとかでマジで寝ない人もいるんだけど、確かに。でもあんまり相関ないかもな。いや、some my energized friend is a long sleeper, but other my energized friend is a short sleeper. I didn't know, but I strongly believe long sleep is the better.
Sometimes when I see checking the Twitters, and there's so many aggressive people that are always tweeting, and I can find their sleeping time.
Right? Like, I don't know how they do it. Maybe they schedule it so it appears.
でも僕は平均で7時間以上眠ってる時間があるよ、ベッドにいる時間じゃなくて。しかも6時間以上、I think normally more than 6 hours are completely sleeping, and more than 8 hours are in the bed. This is how to find in Japan. 実はね、もう少し日本人ちゃんと寝た方がいいとは思うんだけど、マジで。ただね、
Actually, a few years ago, I was a little bit short sleeper, 6 hours or so, but these years I tried keep sleeping for 7 to 8 hours.
better.
Oh, good. Oh, that's good. Yeah, sleep is good.
Sleep is good.
Exercise is good. Taking breaks is good. Seeing friends is good.
ただジェネシスの藤岡さんはマジでないんだよね。ジェネシス CEO 藤岡さん、He is a really short sleeper.
He's very intense.
Yeah, intense.
Yeah.
The field look like Hiroshi Ishii.
Hiroshi is also very
Yes,
intense.
very intense.
He
very
answered
intense.
email in the middle of the night. Like, I don't know. There's some
I
very-
tend to be long sleeper basically, but the issue is when I'm in Tokyo, I tend to be shorter. I don't know why, but I'm trying to be long sleeper in Tokyo, but somehow atmosphere of Tokyo makes me.
There's so much going on. Well, it's funny because maybe if you were in, when I'm in Tokyo, I'm actually away from most people I know, so I have more break. But maybe if you are in, I don't know, New York or, well, but you were in LA or you were in San Francisco, so maybe not San Francisco, but if you were in like Chicago, it's still a big city, but it's a city away from New
Maybe I don't know
York.
too much people here.
Exactly. That's kind of the other reason why I like Tokyo. It's a little bit away. Yeah. It's also a great city by itself, but yeah. I think we probably went
Thank you for the talking.
Thank you.
Thank you.